So I was really hoping that the next patch was going to fix Clash and was really going to address a lot of the major issues that Clash has. And I just wanted to talk about why, me personally, I always get infuriated when I play Clash. Now, I could talk about how, it's unfair that the defenders get an advantage and all that stuff. How you could literally have a back and forth, and every single time you push into their side, they have an advantage, they win that point, then they push back into neutral, and then you have to fight evenly. You win neutral again, then you push into them, but then since they have an advantage, they win again, and then back and forth until the end of the game. It's 4-4, and they win one fight, and then they win the game, even though you've been beating them pretty much the entire game. And the only reason why they've won was because they've had an advantage over you. I could talk about how that makes me mad, and that's an unhealthy game mechanic. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that. But before I talk about what I am going to talk about, I will offer some solutions I have for it. I think the main thing which you have to do is increase the points. I think those the objectives that are inside enemy territory should be worth more points. I think you got to extend the points maybe to like 15. Make it so that every point is worth like an extra one. Like point one is worth 1 point. Then if you go into the enemy territory, it's worth 2 points. And then if you full cap, it's worth 3. Something like that. The game mode's already short enough as it is, so you don't want to make it too short. So extending it a little bit further would go a long way, and it would give real incentive of pushing into enemy territory. But how you stop snowballing in Clash, and for any of you who don't know what snowballing means, is when you win the fight, then you go to the next fight, then you're going to have an advantage because the enemies aren't going to be fully set up. And that has to do with spawning and stuff like that. Like if a team fight drags out, like if everybody doesn't die at the same exact time, not everybody's going to respawn at the same time. And people being people, your teammates being your teammates, are going to walk out of spawn one by one and try to 1v5 the entire team. And then die, and then you lose second point. That's how it goes. How you have to stop snowballing, it's almost impossible to do. Honestly, because the maps are good, but they're kind of tight. So it's like 1 point next to the next point. It's way easier to walk from 1 point to the next one before the defenders do. The only solution I could even think of for that is maybe locking points. Like you can't go to the next point yet. Like you have to lock it. I don't know. Give like the defenders a chance to set up. And what I mean by locking is like creating like a barrier, preventing them from getting into the next section of the map. I don't know. To be honest, I have no idea how you stop the snowballing. I've not really thought it through. But I'm not going to talk about any of that right now. I'm going to talk about why Clash infuriates me. So I had a game the other day. Standard Clash game, right? Me and my friends were playing. We lost first point. That was one team fight for the enemy. They won the first team fight. They go in. Unfortunately, we staggered. Some people live too long, you know how it is. We staggered. So I ended up losing a second point. So we lost 2 team fights in a row. And then, of course, we also staggered on second point because the people who were late to spawn tried coming in and they died. Lotta, you know? And then, so we went to the third point. We were down 2-0. And they won another team fight because we staggered. Again. But this time, since we were so close to our spawn, the people in the back just decided to wait to the people that already died in the front. You know what I mean? But that cost them getting a 4th tick, which means that they had 4 points. Now, if you don't know, the third point is worth 3 points if you capture it in total, because each 1/3 of the total capture will give you an additional point. Now, this is a change I was initially in favor for, because like when you played it before the game mode fully released in like season season 10, when you tried it out, it was like pushing the third point was nearly impossible. It was nearly impossible, and there was zero reward for it. It was basically like you were going to lose unless you just hard diff the enemy. So when they initially came out with this thing where if you go to the third point and you get additional ticks, it's really nice because it really gives you a really nice incentive to actually want to push the third. That being said, here's the problem I had. In order to get those 4 points, they needed to win a total of 3 team fights. Now, to be fair, we did stagger. So, maximum, they had to get 4 team fights in order to get those 4 points, which sounds fair, right? That sounds fair. That sounds like, well, that sounds pretty fair. 4 team fights. Now, in reality, they only had to get 3 from us, but I digress. I'll go with 4. I'll be generous. I'll go with 4. Basically, what we had to do at that point, we won that fight. We won it. We pushed them off a 5th point. They couldn't cap us. So then we won. That was 1 team fight that we won. That was 1. So they had 3 team fights, technically 4, I guess you could say. But we had 1. Then we went and we pushed to our territory. We won our territory again. So that was 2 team fights to their 4, right? Then we went to neutral ground. That was 3 team fights to their 4. We win that. Then we go to their territory. That's 4 team fights to their 4, right? We win that again. So right now we're even, 4-4. Next point wins. But wait a minute. The next point is in the enemy spawn. Well, that's fine. Because we just need 1 tick. We got to win 1 team fight. We got to win 1 tick. That's all we got to do. That's it. We just got to win 1 team fight, 1 tick. Fair. Fair game. It all comes down to this next team fight. We go in. We win the next team fight. We win. Wait a minute. Why do we have to capture the entire objective? Okay, so we won 5 team fights. They've only won 4. So we beat them again. But this time we lost someone. This time we were down somebody. Now we won 6 team fights. And they've only won 4. We're still in their spawn, by the way. Our spawn is like 18 miles behind us, while their spawn is literally like above us. They're right on top of us. They're right there. So we ended up losing the final team fight, and they captured the point because we couldn't respawn in time, and that was game over. And at the end of the day, in that game mode, we legitimately won 6 team fights to their 5. And we lost. We lost. Now, the reason why I don't think it's fair is because when you go back to the initial snowball, when they get to their objective, or our objective, I mean, they got ticks, right? They captured 2/3 of the way, and they got 2 additional points for that, right? But when we went to their side, we had to capture the entire objective, something that they failed to do as well, in order to win. It's unfair. It's completely unfair. It needs to be that you only need to capture a tick. And I know what everybody's thinking. It sounds like you're just salty, and it's a skill issue. And although that might be true, I'm still mad about it. And every time I play Clash, I'm always mad about it. Because it's just such an unfair thing. It makes it next to impossible to come back. I would prefer being down 126 meters to 0 in push and feel like I have more of a chance to win that than if I'm down 4-0 in Clash. Because the fact of the matter is, you are such at disadvantage, and that's probably not true. It's probably a lot harder to come back and push. I'm just being salty. But still, every time I see that game mode, it always infuriates me. Because, how you solve it? Very easy. This is what I was hoping for. Make it so final point, you get 1 tick. 1 tick. If it's 4-4, and people are pushing their final point, it should be 1 tick. You shouldn't have to capture the entire objective, because it's a guaranteed loss. You have to beat them 3 times in order to win. You literally cannot do that. Because at the very least, you could beat somebody 3 times, but all they got to do is get 1 pick. 1 pick. Come back next fight. They have an advantage. And it's just GG. GG. That's it. That's all you can say. And that's why I hate Clash. That's why I absolutely despise the game mode. Because of the whole final tick things. Now, it was something I was initially in favor for. And if you were to ask me before the tick system was in place, I was saying, oh, that sounds like a great idea. But now that I've actually played it, man, it's really infuriating how I have to capture the final point fully, and they just have to capture ticks, and it's just so annoying. It's unfair, and I was really hoping they would change something about it. I was really hoping in the patch notes they would say, make it so that you only have to capture one tick for the third point, which is what it should be. And if it wasn't for that, I'd be fine with the game mode. I'm honest to God, I actually kind of like it. A lot of people absolutely hate it, like myself, like me just making an entire ranting video about it. But honest to God, I don't think it's a bad game mode. I think it's kind of fun. I just think it needs to be tweaked a little bit. It needs to stop snowballing. How do you do that? That's a damn good question. That is something that I haven't personally thought of. And until there's a solution in place for it, it's going to remain a bad game mode. But if they find a way to make it fair, maybe by, I don't know, extending the map a little bit. Obviously, you can't do that because the maps are actually really good. But, man, I would say the main issue with the game mode, honestly, is the snowballing. Like, going from one point to another, it's really annoying. You have to be so coordinated in Clash, and it's just something you can't be realistically able to do with a bunch of random players. There's no shot. I mean, you've seen the types of teammates you get. Like, you really, like, listen, it's already like leading a bunch of ducklings not to get eaten. Like, the micromanagement you have to do to keep these players alive is at another level already. And you want to do it even further? Like, it's just not happening. You basically have to be the mother duck leading all the ducklings to spawn, and every time one of them runs away, you gotta double back and grab them. And yeah, it's just so annoying. It's just so annoying. The game mode isn't half bad. It's not awful. But if they just fixed it, if they just made just these little tweaks, the game mode would be so much better. It would be so much better. And it would actually be really enjoyable. And also, extend the game mode a little bit. It's way too short. It's so short. I really like it, but it's really short. And I'm fine with quick, short game modes, but when I'm playing, like, competitive, I do not want a short, quick game mode. I want to have, like, a fair chance. But yeah, that's my little rant about Clash. Hopefully they'll fix it. Hopefully it'll be good. And, one last thing before I go. For anybody that hates Flashpoint, Flashpoint is the best Overwatch game mode. Fight me on that.